the British Empire, a name that echoes through history as both a tale of ambition and conquest, as well as one of exploitation and decline. The British Empire was once the largest empire the world had ever seen, covering nearly a quarter of the Earth's landmass at its height. But how did this empire rise to such dominance, and what factors ultimately led to its fall? Today on Wonderwave, we'll explore the fascinating journey of the British Empire, from its early days to its final moments. The story of the British Empire begins in the late 16th century, during the Age of Exploration. Inspired by the successes of Spanish and Portuguese explorers, British sailors and adventurers set out to establish new trade routes and colonies. The first significant colony was founded in 1607 in Jamestown, Virginia, marking the beginning of British North America. Over time, England established other colonies along the Atlantic coast of North America, in the Caribbean, and in parts of India. Driven by the pursuit of resources, wealth, and influence, England gradually transformed into a global power. By the 18th century, the British East India Company had become a dominant force in India. It began as a trading company, but soon wielded enormous power, effectively ruling large parts of India with its own private army. The company exploited local rivalries and used diplomacy and military force to expand British control. However, British rule in India was not without opposition. The company's harsh policies led to discontent among the Indian population, which would eventually spark resistance. The company's influence was so great that it laid the foundations for what would become the British Raj, the formal British rule in India established after the Indian Rebellion of 1857. In North America, British influence expanded rapidly during the 17th and 18th centuries. However, tensions arose between the British government and the American colonists. Disputes over taxes and lack of representation led to the American Revolution in 1775, resulting in Britain losing its 13 American colonies by 1783. This loss was a major setback, but it did not mark the end of British expansion. Britain turned its attention toward Asia, Africa, and the Pacific, further expanding its empire and seeking new opportunities in the wake of its loss in North America. During the 19th century, Britain reached the height of its power under Queen Victoria. Known as the Victorian Era, this period saw Britain become the workshop of the world, driven by the power of the Industrial Revolution. British goods, technology, and culture were exported to colonies worldwide, from Australia and Canada to India and Africa. The empire grew rapidly, with Britain acquiring control over vast regions of Africa during the scramble for Africa in the late 19th century. By the end of the century, the British Empire spanned from Canada to New Zealand, solidifying its reputation as the largest empire in history. However, the British Empire's growth came at a cost. Colonized peoples often faced exploitation, forced labor, and cultural suppression. In Africa, the British divided territories without considering local cultures, leading to long-term conflicts. In India, British policies caused economic hardship and even famine. And in Ireland, British rule led to resistance and eventually a brutal war for independence. The empire's structure was based on the principle of control rather than equality. Over time, dissatisfaction grew in many colonies with increasing calls for independence and self-rule. Chapter 6: The Two World Wars and the Decline of the Empire. The beginning of the 20th century brought significant challenges to the British Empire. The First World War weakened Britain economically and militarily. Although Britain was on the winning side, the costs were high, and the empire's resources were stretched thin. The Second World War marked an even greater turning point. Britain emerged from the war victorious, but its economy was shattered, and it could no longer maintain its vast empire. At the same time, nationalist movements grew stronger in many British colonies, including India and parts of Africa. Chapter 7. The Path to Decolonization. The post-war era saw a wave of decolonization as Britain began to grant independence to its colonies. In 1947, India and Pakistan gained independence, marking the beginning of the end for the British Empire. This was followed by a steady decline in British influence around the world. Throughout the 1950s, 60s and 70s, British colonies in Africa, the Caribbean and Asia gained independence. By the 1980s, the British Empire had essentially dissolved, with only a few small territories remaining under British control. Chapter 8. Legacy and Impact of the British Empire. Though the British Empire has long since disappeared, its impact can still be felt today. English remains a global language, spoken by millions around the world. British legal, educational and governmental systems influenced former colonies and can still be seen in countries across the globe. But the legacy of the empire is complex. For many, the British Empire represents a history of oppression and exploitation. For others, it is remembered for bringing about globalization and connecting different parts of the world. Conclusion. The rise and fall of the British Empire is a story of ambition, resilience and transformation. It reshaped continents and cultures, leaving behind a lasting, albeit controversial, legacy. The empire's expansion and eventual collapse serve as a reminder of the power dynamics that have shaped our world and the enduring human desire for freedom and independence. Thank you for watching this exploration of the British Empire on Wonderwave. Don't forget to subscribe for more deep dives into history's greatest stories and mysteries.